What's up, everybody? Tactical Swede here once again. Thanks for watching. So today we're going to be doing a video for a gentleman named Patriot in the Dark. Now, if you don't know this guy, check him out. Links in the description below. He's 100% legally blind. And he's been doing this series of videos where he's disassembling and reassembling various weapons. But he's doing it very descriptively, like talking about what he's doing and what he's feeling. A lot of times, we take for granted that we can watch a video and see what the person is doing. But, for those out there that are visually impaired, a lot of times the descriptive nature of what you're saying is just as important as, what you're showing on the video. So, he put this challenge out there for you to, blindfold yourself and, field strip a weapon and talk your way through it as if you're talking over the phone to somebody who can't see what you're doing. So I'm going to attempt to do that today. A lot of guys have been doing pistols. I wanted to do something a little bit different, so I'm going AR15 today. So let's get the old blindfold on here, and we'll see you guys in a few minutes. Alright guys, so the weapon we have in front of us today is a Smith & Wesson M&P 15 AR-15 style rifle, chambered in 5.56. So let's get into this field strip of the AR-15. Obviously before we field strip it, we need to safety check it. But before that, I'm going to kind of run over the features and controls that we're going to need to use to actually safe it and then to take it apart. So as the weapon sits right now, it's laying on the table with the right side of the weapon facing me and the barrel facing to the right. So if we start at the other end here, down at the stock, we have a adjustable 6-position stock here. If you feel it, it's kind of a triangle shape. In the middle of that triangle, there's going to be a lever that you can push, and you can slide your stock to whatever positions you want and then release it to lock it into place. So if you follow along the rifle from the top of the stock, you're going to run into your buffer tube here, and if you keep going forward from there, you're going to hit a T-shaped item here. This is the charging handle. This is what you're going to use to pull your bolt back to the rear. If you're going to pull it back and charge it, release it, it's going to strip a round off of the magazine and feed it into the chamber. So you have your charging handle here. If you come down from the charging handle, you're going to feel what's called the forward assist. Now, not all AR-15s are going to have this. Anything that's mil-spec will, though. The purpose of this is if your bolt doesn't fully seat into battery, you can then push on this button here, and that will use the serrations that are on the bolt and force it into battery. If you keep following down from there, you're going to run into your pistol grip here, and then up from there and to the right, you're going to have your trigger guard and your trigger. If you follow forward of the trigger guard here, you're going to run into the magazine. And then if you follow the magazine up, you're going to run into a button right here, and that is your magazine release. So right now we're going to push that, and we're going to pull our magazine out. We'll set that to the side. This is unloaded, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to show the safety check. Obviously, if you follow up from there, you're going to run into your ejection port, and you can see, or feel, that the bolt is in the closed position. So we cannot verify that there's no round in the chamber without pulling that bolt back. In order to do that, we're going to have to show some stuff on the other side of the rifle. So we'll come over here, and we're going to start at the grip. So if we come up from the grip, straight up, you're going to run into another control here. This is the safety selector. As it sits right now in the horizontal position like this, it is in safe. If we were to flip this into the vertical position, now it's in fire. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to keep it on safe. Again, if you follow this forward, you're going to run into another control here. It's kind of a two-piece button that pivots in the center. The top piece here is a paddle with grooved serrations on it. And then on the underside is just a little nub. And you can see they pivot on a center point there. So in order to pull the bolt back and lock it, we're going to use this button here. This is your bolt catch, bolt release. So what I do is, reaching under the rifle, I'll push that button in with my finger, and then grabbing the charging handle. Now, a mil-spec charging handle is going to have a release lever on the left of the charging handle. Some aftermarket ones will have one on both sides, ambidextrous. So we're going to finger on either side, pull that charging handle to the rear while we push in on the button. So pull it all the way back until it stops, and then you can let it go. You can push the charging handle back in until it locks, and you can release your button. Now, back on this side, the bolt is now to the rear, and we can inspect the chamber. Normally you can do this visually. Obviously, for the purpose of this video, we're going to do it by feel. So we can feel in there. There's nothing in the chamber. There's no magazine. So we have a safe weapon now. All right, getting into the disassembly, we're going to flip back over again for a second. Again, starting with the grip, we're going to come up to the safety selector again, and we'll put one finger on either side of the safety selector. Slide to the rear, you're going to feel a little bit of a protrusion. That is the rear takedown pin. And then on the front side of the receiver, if you feel forward until you find the front of the receiver, the mag well, if you kind of slide up from there on the side of the rifle, you're going to feel another one of those pins. That one is your forward pivot pin or your forward takedown pin. Now, some rifles you can push these with your fingers. Other ones you might need to grab a pen or something and push down on them. Luckily, my pins are loose enough to where I can do it with my fingers, so not an issue here. So the way I do this is I'll grab them, I'll put my fingers on each pin. There we go. And then flip the rifle over, and I'm going to push up. And then on the opposite side of the rifle is the head of those pins. So we're going to push up, and you'll feel the heads of those pins have now come up. And you can then grab them and pull them all the way out. And that is going to separate your two receivers. I forgot to lock the bolt forward. All right, so on the lower receiver, there's not a whole lot to do here. You can take the buffer and buffer spring out. Actually, we'll do that. Along the buffer tube here, it's going to come to a stop, and you're going to feel a flat face. That is the face of your buffer. And then at the base of that, you're going to feel a pin, like a little retaining pin here. So what we're going to do is, with one hand, we're going to push the buffer to the rear to release the tension on the retainer, and then with the other hand, we're going to push down on the retainer pin. So we'll push that in, and we'll push down on the pin, and that will allow the buffer to come forward. We'll do a little wiggle and pull, and the spring comes out. Now, we'll set this aside for now. And we'll go back to the upper receiver. Now, for the upper receiver, for a field strip, basically it's just pulling the bolt carrier group out of the receiver to do any kind of cleaning or maintenance that we need to do. For that, again, we're going to use the charging handle. But the way I do it is I'll flip the rifle upside down, and then we'll grab the charging handle and pull it out just a little bit, and that will allow your bolt to extend out, and then you can grab your bolt and pull it out. And simple as that. We'll take the charging handle here and we'll pull that out. Now, if you pull straight out, you're going to feel it stop. What you do at that point is lift up, and that will come out of the groove. And now we have a field stripped AR-15. Now at this point you can further take apart the bolt carrier group, but for the purpose of this video we're just doing a basic field strip here. Before we put it back together, things to note on the bolt here. On the top side of the bolt, you're going to feel a kind of a tube sticking out of the front. That tube is going to ride inside of the charging handle groove here, which is going to ride inside of the groove on the receiver. So important to note that for positioning when we're putting this back together. Another important note is when you're putting your bolt carrier group back in, on the end here, this kind of star-shaped piece is the actual bolt, and if you pull on it and push on it, it does move. When you're putting this back in the rifle, you need to make sure the bolt is in the extended position. If it's pushed in, you'll feel there's a pin over here, your cam pin, and with it pushed in, that cam pin extends out and is going to interfere with your receiver as you try to put it back in. So as you pull the bolt to the extended position, that cam pin then kind of hides underneath of the gas tube and will allow you to insert it. All right, so putting this back together. Now, as you notice, when we pulled it out, we had to pull it out and then lift it to get it to come out, and that's because if you follow along the charging handle here, you'll feel these two little flared spots, and that is going to coincide with the chamber here, or your receiver. There's a groove where the charging handle sits, and if you feel along there, you're going to feel it open up there, and that opening is to accept those flared pieces of the charging handle. So now we're going to grab our charging handle here, find the opening in the receiver, and slide it into that groove there, and then you're basically just going to run it kind of forward and back until you find that flared opening, and it should drop in. And then we're going to slide it forward just a little more, keep it extended there. All right, and then on our bolt, we're going to find that gas tube here, and that gas tube is then going to slot into the groove in our charging handle. And then we slide the bolt forward into the receiver and push it forward until it locks. All right, then we're going to grab our lower and our buffer spring again. We'll bring them back over here. Now when you're putting the buffer spring back in, you don't need to worry about pushing the retainer pin at all. You just slide it past there, and it's automatically going to push that down. There we go. It's now locked back into position. On your upper receiver, if you feel at the end here, where the rear face of the bolt carrier group is, if you go down from there, you're going to feel kind of a little nub with a hole in it, and then if you go forward, you're going to run into another one right here. Now those are what attach on the rear, the lower receiver to your pins. So you don't want to align those with the lower. This can be a little difficult if you can't see what you're doing, but hopefully this works out. Line up that flat face of the buffer with the flat face of your bolt carrier group, and these two pieces should then slide together. All right, and then what we do is we try to push those pins back down. Sometimes it might take a little wiggling. There goes one. And there goes the other one. And there we have it. A blind field strip of an AR15 style rifle. So yeah, definitely a challenge to do without being able to see it. Doing everything by feel definitely takes longer. Normally I can do this in less than a minute, take it apart, put it back together. But definitely goes to show that those people who are visually impaired definitely have like crazy challenges. And I'm glad to do this. Hope you guys found it interesting. I challenge you to do it yourself. It's not as easy as it seems. All right, guys, that's all we got today. Just wanted to do this for Patriot in the Dark, the blind challenge. So as always, if you like what I'm doing, give me that thumbs up. If you haven't already, do hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with any new videos we got coming out. We'll catch you next time. Till then, live life and have fun out there.